This is Allie Edwards and welcome to another episode of Craft the Story. This week I am going to be showing you the process for making a scrapbook layout using a specific story prompt, story starter, story spark, whatever you want to call it, as a jumping off point for my story. I'm also going to be using some products from a new Scrapbook Kit release that we have available. It's a quarterly scrapbook kit. This first one, the theme is hearts, so I'm celebrating all the heart stuff. Valentine's Day, Anna's birthday was this week, just lots of heart goodness. And what I want to talk about today, and this is actually one of the things that I want to do throughout the course of the year, is introduce you or reintroduce you to some of my favorite story themes or story jumping off points. Like I just said, story prompts, story starters, those sorts of things. For me, often those are either single word or phrases that I come back to again and again in my storytelling that I've done over the years. We talked about day in the life in a previous video, and the jumping off point that I want to talk about today is the phrase, love you because. Love you because is a super easy way to tell a story, right? It's giving us specific direction. It's basically saying, answer this question. Why do you love someone or love certain people in your life? Or maybe you're going to tell a story about loving yourself. Why do I love myself? Love you because, right? We can talk to ourselves in those ways, in that way, as a way to pump ourselves up or just give ourselves some love. I think that we all deserve a little bit of that as well. In the case of today's project, I think what I'm going to do is I am going to do a little bit of writing for each person in my family. So I have a pretty big family. We have 7 people here, including me, but I think in the case of this one, I'm going to do one for each person, except for myself. So I'm gonna have 6 focal points on this scrapbook page. Now, a couple things before I get in, things that I want you to think about. Number 1, you do not have to be doing the same size as me, right? We've talked about sizes in previous episodes. Today I'm gonna be doing a 9x12 spread. So that means I'm starting with 2 sheets of 9x12 cardstock as the base of my project. You might wanna use a 6x8 sheet of paper. You might wanna use a 12x12, you might want to use an 8.5x11. You can do any of those things, right? You get to choose what size you want to make this project. So my jumping off point here for this particular layout and using this concept of love you because is a piece of pattern paper that we included in this new scrapbook kit. And you can read more about that and see more about that on the blog and in a separate video. So we're doing these quarterly kits. This first one is all heart related things because hearts are one of my favorite shapes to incorporate into my projects. But one of the pieces of pattern paper has these hearts that are like speech bubbles. And so what I am planning on doing is I'm going to cut 6 of these out, and I'm literally going to cut them out from the pattern paper. You can always build right on top of this pattern paper. That's always an option that's available to you. One of the things when I was designing this collection of pattern papers is I wanted them to be able to be very direct, or I wanted it to be an easy way for you to see that a story could be built upon this page. That's what I'm trying to say. So here, in the case of this one, you could simply do journaling on top of here. You could cut out photos to go on top. The other side of this is just a cute light yellow pattern paper, but I'm gonna actually use this and I'm gonna cut them out and I'm gonna adhere them down onto my background cardstock. Another page that is included, another pattern paper that's included in the kit is this one here. And I'm thinking that maybe I might cut out one of these as a title. That's something that I could potentially do. I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm actually going to incorporate this yet, but I know that I am going to use these. Now, I'm going to be writing about, I'm going to use the prompt, love you because, and my journaling will say, love you because this and this and this, love you because this and this and this. So I know that that is how I'm going to write my story. One of the things I want you to know right now is I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm going to include photos, but I think that I probably am. Because as I'm thinking this through right now, what I'm envisioning is that I will have, I'm pretty sure this will fit, yep. I will have 2 hearts, So for me, it's 6 people, right? So I got to do a little bit of math here. 6 people, but I can have a heart of journaling, a heart photo. Okay, so then I can cut that out, print out a photo and use this, the pattern here as a template. And then I can have a photo in my journaling, a photo in my journaling. That covers 3 people. And then I can have a photo and journaling, photo and journaling, photo and journaling, right? That covers my other 3 people. You could do this without photos. That's something that you can always, is always an option available to you. But what I want to do first is I'm actually going to start by doing a little bit of decorating on top of these hearts. And I'm going to use, we have a rolling phrase stamp, and one of the things it says on here is "so much love." And what I want to do here is I want to I'm taking just a scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to lay this on top here so that I can repeat stamp along the top. So it's going to give a little bit of decoration to my hearts before I cut them out. I'm just going to do this on the pattern paper, and then below I'll be able to write a little bit of journaling. This week I'm not telling a long story. This week I'm telling 6 smaller stories about why I love the people in my family right now. Just trying to get all my words together. All right, so a couple things to think about. I'm considering, do I want to just do black on top? And I think at first I was thinking I might do like a pink or something else, but I think I'm going to do black, and I'm going to use StazOn because that's kind of my go-to black ink. And I'm going to do repeat stamping on the top that's going to create a little bit of pattern. So let's go ahead and just dive in and do that. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, and I am doing it before I cut these out. So I'm just doing, it's going to create its own little pattern here. And again, I'm using the this extra piece of cardstock to create this stark line, and you'll see that in a second here. So let's go ahead. And I think probably what I'm going to do in the case for this video is I'm going to show you these 3, and then I'll go ahead and do the other ones, not necessarily on camera. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so when I'm doing this, my goal is to just I'm creating texture as well as, I'm using words to create texture, which is something that I love to do. And I don't really feel like it needs to be super readable, and you can do as much or as little on here as you want. I'm adding in some that are going different directions. Okay, so when you peel that off, then you have this nice line right across the top. Actually, I might as well just go in and do the other 3 right now too while I have you guys here. And I could get out my ruler and measure this so that it's exact, but I don't. It's not going to matter. So I'm just kind of try to eyeball a little bit there, and then let's go ahead and do this. And then my next step is I can either do my journaling right now at this point, so a little bit about each person, about why I love each person, love them because, or I could do the journaling after I cut them out. Doesn't matter which way you go. Okay. Now, you might have a Love You Because stamp at home from one of the many stamps that we've offered over the years, and so if so, you could do that on the top. But that is the jumping off point that I'm going to use for the actual storytelling here. Okay, so I've created my little bit of a title on the top. Now, the next thing that I like to do is when I'm doing something like this where I'm journaling about a variety of different people, I often like to include an initial that just signifies, okay, this is that person. In this case, they're going to be paired, these journaling spots, or well, I'm going to call them journaling spots, they're going to be paired with a photo. So it'll be pretty obvious that it is that person. But I'm thinking a little bit about what would I want to add on there. And maybe if I just did, I like to use initials. I think that's what I just said. But I could stamp on here like one of these guys. And this could just signify each one of my people. And I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it in red. And I'm actually going to grab, this is an archival ink red. Actually, I think, let's see. Yeah, we'll go with this one. So I have a lot of A's in my family here. Let's go ahead, grab the A. I'm gonna have to think it out. So I'm gonna have this be like right here. I kind of don't mind if it goes a little bit off the page also. So there's an A. So one A will be for Aaron, one A will be for Anna. I'll just kind of get them. I don't mind if they go off, and I don't mind if they're not perfect either. Okay, so we've got Anna, Aaron, Audrey, Simon, Isaac, and Elliot. Okay, so let's go ahead and get those guys. When I'm stamping, a lot of times if I don't have a baby wipe or I'm not into the cleaning mode, I just stamp it off like that. So let's do an E. An E for Elliot. And also gonna do an I for Isaac. Try to get that straight on there. And then an S for Simon. Okay, so heads up to you, so you guys know, at this point in the process, I actually haven't even gone and looked for my photos. I haven't printed photos, I haven't looked for them. I'm just going ahead and doing this part of the process first, because that's what I felt inspired to do. It's that good reminder that you can do layouts that don't have any photos on them. All right, one of the other things that we had in the scrapbook kit are some cute little puffy hearts. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add these on here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and handwrite my journaling for each of my people. I'm just gonna take, let's see, I wanna use the little ones here. Just put a little heart right next to the initial. Okay, so now I have all my heart journaling spots set up. So the next step in this process is for me to grab a pen and to simply start writing. Okay, so for journaling in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to use a thick pen. This is a Slick Writer pen, and then I'm going to use a thinner pen. And I'm going to write "love you because," and that's going to be the thicker portion. And then I'm going to write a reason why I love them. And then I'm going to, with the thinner pen, and then I'm going to write "love you because" again with the thicker pen. And obviously this could be typed journaling. When you do subscribe to our scrapbook kit, you do get the digital kit included with it. So that gives you a little more option for printing out at home and adding journaling on to the pattern papers before printing if you want to do that. Almost always test my pens before I put them down on the page. You can write smaller to fit more things in, or again, that reminder that maybe you have multiple things that you want to say for one person. So rather than doing individual people, you could do hearts that, number one, number two, you could number them instead of put the initials on them, number one, number two, number three, and that's where you could see, even if you want to do it on this page, like "love you because," and here's the 9 reasons why I love you. to think about as I'm writing this. I'm thinking a couple things. One is, if you're starting out, or maybe you haven't done a lot of storytelling over the years, when you come to a project like this and you are listing out the reasons why you love someone, and maybe you've never actually done that before, you might feel overwhelmed in a couple different ways. One way you might feel overwhelmed is that you want to write a lot. And if you do, that is awesome. I would highly recommend that you just type it all out. Like, get all of those words out, and then you can pick and choose which sorts of things you might want to bring into a project like this. That might be one feeling you're feeling. The second feeling you might feel is that because you haven't done it before, or maybe it's been a long time, you might just feel overwhelmed with all of those different thoughts, and feeling like, if you're doing it for each one of your family members, feeling like, oh my God, I need to say all of the things. Well, what I want to remind you about is you don't have to say all of the things, especially if you start developing memory keeping and scrapbooking as a lifestyle. For me, what I know is that when I come to tell a story like this, which is one that I have told lots of different times before in lots of different ways, whatever I choose to say on this project, whatever reason I am loving one of these people or each of these people right now, is the story that I need to tell right now. Like, I kind of just decide that that is going to be what is true for me. I'm saying specific things on here. I could tell, I could say 500 different things, but I'm just deciding that I'm going to be okay with whatever comes out of me right now as I'm thinking about this person, as I'm deciding what to write down. What are the reasons why I'm loving them right now? It is really my focus, and I'm just picking out one thing, right? Usually there's lots of reasons why we love people. So it's okay to pick one thing, and it's also okay to write a ton, because this might be the jumping off point. Doing just this one project might be the jumping off point for lots of other thoughts for you about why you love someone. And this would be a great time to go to your computer, or you're already at your computer, sit there, just open up the Notes app and start typing up, what are the reasons why you love your child or your parents or your pets or yourself, like we talked about in the beginning. Journaling done on here, and the next step for me is going to be going in and cutting these out, cutting out each one individually, like I said, and then these are going to go on top of my background cardstock, which is just white cardstock. I'm going to cut these up individually first, and then we'll go in and cut each one of them out. Cool thing about this is, in this case, I still have these hearts left over that I can use on a different project, right? Or I can use the pattern paper on something else. So I'm just going to set that aside, finish these guys up here. Let's see. And then after I cut these out, I am going to go to my computer and find some photos to go along with these. So when I'm cutting something like this out, like, I like to cut shapes out of pattern paper. I like to cut shapes out of journal cards. If you have a lot of 3x4 and 4x6 journal cards in your stash from the last few years or longer, cutting shapes out of the journal cards is a great way to get more use out of them, especially if you are wanting to have some things that are inside the pockets and then other things that are outside of the pockets. When I cut these out, I have no expectation that they are going to be perfectly sized. So I'm basically just going with the flow, and I'm just going to cut one here on camera because, as you can imagine, this might take a little bit of time to cut 6 of these out. But I'll show you, I'll show you the next step in the process there as well. Okay, so that's what that ends up looking like, is a little like this, right? And so now what I'm gonna do next is print out, or after I cut all these out, I'm gonna print out photos that will go with them. But I did want you to see that you could just do a 9x12 page that just had like reasons why you loved the people in your family without having the photos to go along with it. Oh, one other thing I want to say about Love You Because, Love You Because is a phrase, a story spark, that I have used before for mini books too, where you make a whole little mini book that says love you because, and here's the reason, you know, all of the reasons why. I'll link you guys to that so you can see what that has looked like in the past if making mini books is something that you feel like you want to do now. Or, you know, we got lots of choices. All right, so I finished up all of the cutting. I cut out all the hearts, and then I also went over to my computer and printed out photos. Now, a couple things I want to say about printing out the photos, specifically this time. I noticed a couple things. Number one, I noticed that I haven't taken a lot of really recent photos of all of the kids. So I'm gonna put that on my list of things to be more conscious about going forward. Obviously, as your kids get older, you take different kinds of pictures. At least I'm finding that to be the case. So the second thing that I noticed was that a lot of the pictures that I have of the boys, specifically teen boys, are of them interacting with and or doing other things, which I am totally cool with, because I am not the kind of person that goes around the house and is like, look up here, look, you know, look at me, I'm gonna take your picture. But what I do, like today, what I did when I found that I didn't have some recent pictures is I went into their rooms and I said, hey, can I take a picture of you just doing whatever you're doing right now? Like, you don't have to look at me, you don't have to do anything, I just want to capture what you look like right now. And I've been doing that kind of thing long enough around here that they're usually fairly willing, and if I was to encounter them doing something they wouldn't want me to take a picture of or whatever, like I'm super respectful of that. But when you look at the pictures that I have, like of the boys, so we've got Isaac working on computers in his room, that's what he's super into. The picture that I ended up having of Simon is he's playing a card game here in my office. Elliot's doing something on his phone. And then you'll also notice here that I decided to add a picture of the girls together instead of doing individual pictures of them. I'm going to talk about the measurements in just a minute. It's just a picture that I love of them. I feel like it's very representative of their personality, and it was one I came across and I was like, oh, that would be a perfect one to add in. So in terms of measuring, what I knew here is that I was going to divide the space in my layout into basically a grid, okay? So I know that this is 9 inches wide by 12 inches tall, and I wanted to give each of the hearts a home as well as each of the photos. So the photos ended up being, these ones here are 4.5 wide, right? That's half of 9 inches, 4.5 wide by 4 inches tall. And I just set that in my photo program. These ones I actually pulled over from photos and then took care of this in Photoshop, but you can do that in your photo management program and you know, print custom sizes as well. And I've got other videos that you can see about printing and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna cut this last one here. I just printed these on 4x6 pieces of paper, and I'm gonna trim it here to 4.5 wide. This last one of Simon, and so he's going to end up going right there. So I have a really nice grid. One other thing that I noticed, that if I was going to do it again, I would probably pay a little bit more attention to the direction that this little part of the speech bubble, the direction that that's going. Because if you see, I have 4 that are going this way, and I have 2 that are going that way, and I think I would have rather had an even amount, like 3 that are going to the left and 3 that are going to the right. Totally doesn't matter in the end. This is not a big deal. So you can see I've got my long photo here. I have the photo of Aaron, and each one of these I was able to just move the hearts around on the page to help me find a photo where they were kind of facing at least either forward or a similar direction. Elliot's obviously facing the other way. One thing that I started to do here when I had the camera off too was I'm taking the hearts here, the speech bubble hearts that speech bubble hearts that I cut out, and I'm using foam adhesive to adhere those down. I always like, especially something like this, I like giving them a little bit of lift up off the back of the page. And I'm not ready to adhere these down yet because I'm still thinking about and considering, do I want to add something behind them? That might be a transparency, that might be another patterned paper. What I like to point that out because I'm at the phase of the process where I could decide, like, this is good enough. Like, I'm happy with this. I don't feel like I need to add anything else. I don't need to add another layer of stuff on here, but you can if you want to, right? And so that's one of the things that I really want to impart to you guys, especially when we're in this video series, when we're showing specific examples. I want you to start thinking in ways that you can make the ideas I'm showing work for you. I like to call that being a translator of ideas, because some of the ideas that I'm doing may not work for you for a number of reasons. But I want you to still be able to get the concept of, like, can you tell the story of why you love someone using the jumping off phrase, love you because? Yes, you can. And there's a million different ways that you could bring that together. All right, so I want to, before I glue the rest of the things down, I'm pretty sure that what I would like to do here is play around with potentially adding something in the back. And I did cut one transparency. This is one that I just had in my stash. I think it's like a Dear Lizzie, so probably pretty old. But here's what that could look like behind there. And maybe I add it into a couple places just to add a little bit more color if you want it. Also, you know, the pattern papers that are in the kit, I could use like the yellow here. What I want to do though is just kind of look at them and decide, and also look at what's in my stash. So is there anything from this Heart Scrapbook Kit that I want to use, or any other papers from my stash that might be fun to add behind there? I'm kind of thinking of potentially some black and white patterns. I might have some of those, or maybe I just add one more pattern, and actually maybe I just add one more piece of this that will give it just a little bit more of that grid feeling potentially. I want to look in my stuff and then I'll come back on here. Okay, so what I ended up doing is I went into my scraps of pattern paper, and if you're getting the scrapbook kit, you could use some of those patterns. I actually want to save some of those patterns for some other projects that I'm working on. And so I went through and just found a variety of different ones, and I'm gonna just play around and see if I even like this concept once I actually put it down, or if it feels like it's too much. But I just grabbed a couple different random ones. I always like the black and white ones. This one was, if you got the morning story kit at pattern paper add-on pack, that was this one. So I'm just gonna trim these and then let's see what they look like. So again, I'm trimming them to 4.5 by 4 that will go behind the hearts. And again, you could use transparencies, you can use lots of things for this. So let's just see, like, if we put this one here, I'm just gonna we'll just lay them down and kind of see what they end up looking like. Actually, this one might be better. Okay, so here's another one. I'm kind of just thinking, like, if we do a little bit of, yeah. Okay, so I like this. I think it's super fun. The patterns definitely add a little bit of additional life. You might look at it and you might be like, oh my god, that's super busy. Or you might look at it and you might be like, I love this. Either way, it's cool. Either way, again, focusing on the story that we're telling here is the idea of love you because, and these are all the different reasons why. So I think this is fun. I'm going to go with this. The next thing for me to decide is, do I want to add any other additional embellishments to the photos? And I kind of think no. I kind of think I'm just going to leave it like it is. So the next step for me then is essentially adhering everything down. And so that's what I'm gonna do next. Okay, so one thing too, when you are putting together a page like this and you have cut everything individually and all the things don't fit together perfectly, that's another spot where I think people can be like, oh, now what do I do? And so what I do is I just leave it for right now, and then at the end I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna trim off the extra edges where they're a little bit too big. These ones I can take off the back now. In case you didn't notice, I put these adhesive squares on here, but I didn't peel the backs off so that I could move them around on my page and figure out where did I really want them to go. All right, something I always try to remember to do is add the date on here somewhere. Usually, like in the case of something like this, I'm just adding on the date when I told the story. If it was a story that had a very specific day where it happened, I would add that date on there. But in this case, this is more of like a roundup story of right now. So let's recap a little bit before I'm gonna trim off the, actually let's trim that off first, and then I wanna do a little recap here. And in this case, I'm just gonna lay this down on my trimmer here because it seemed like a lot of this, the part that was extra on this page or was all right here. Okay, so now we've lined that up. I think the rest of it was okay. It was mainly just that one spot. This one's got a little bit over on the edge. In this case, I'm gonna use some scissors. Either way works fine. Okay, so two-page spread, 9x12, focusing on the jumping off point of love you because, right? So using, we're starting with story. We're thinking, okay, I'm gonna tell some stories about reasons why I love people right now. Love you because is a great jumping off point for that. Then I have the pattern paper that I wanted to use from our new scrapbook kit. The speech bubbles there. I stamped on them to create the top portion that links them all together. I used the alphabet stamp to add the initial of each person on there. That's what I wanted to do with that. That was using a sans serif alpha. Then I hand wrote all of my journaling using a couple different pen sizes. I'm looking for my pens now, they're here on my table. A couple different pen sizes. I added the Puffy Hearts from the new scrapbook kit also. Then I cut out those hearts. Then I printed my photos and adjusted everything on the page. And then my next step was to identify some other pattern papers that I wanted to play with. Yours might look simpler, yours will look a little bit different, but this is a really easy way to play around with a grid, play around with identifying and telling the story of why you love a bunch of different people in your life, or again, focusing on one person and using each of the hearts as a way to capture one of the reasons why you love them. So these are the kind of scrapbook pages that I love to look back on in the future, the ones that kind of incorporate everyone and have just a little bit of story mixed in there about what I'm loving about each of them right now. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions on today's project. Some weeks in this Craft the Story series, I will just be talking like you've seen me do in the initial episodes here. And other weeks I will be doing projects where I am sharing some of my favorite story starters and jumping off points like we did today. If you guys are liking this content, please hit subscribe and I will see you back here again next week.